Imagine sitting on a curb, chewing on a lunch sandwich, convinced that you are the biggest failure in human history. That was Gavrilo Princip in June of 1914. He had spent months planning a high-stakes political assassination, only for his friends to fail miserably and get arrested. Defeated, hungry, and feeling completely useless, he walked into a local delicatessen to grab a quick bite to eat. As he stepped back out onto the pavement, wiping mustard from his mouth, a grand open-top car pulled up directly in front of him. It did not just drive past. It stopped dead still, exactly 2 feet away. Inside sat the exact target he was trying to eliminate. Now, how on earth does a frustrated teenager eating a midday snack end up face-to-face with the heir to a massive empire? To understand this magnificent disaster, we have to rewind to June 28, 1914. Archduke Franz Ferdinand, heir to the Austro-Hungarian throne, decided to visit Sarajevo. This was a terrible idea from the start. Local nationalist groups hated Austro-Hungarian rule, and sending the Archduke there on an important national holiday was like waving a red flag at an angry bull. To make matters worse, official security was practically non-existent. The Archduke even insisted on riding in an open-top car so the crowd could see his lovely uniform. What could possibly go wrong? Enter the Black Hand, a secret nationalist group determined to free their territory from the empire. They recruited a team of 7 young men to eliminate the Archduke. Now, you might picture elite stealth operatives in dark cloaks. Instead, these guys were mostly inexperienced students who had never pulled off a high-profile operation in their entire lives. Their gear consisted of basic pistols, primitive hand grenades, and small vials of cyanide poison to ensure silence if captured. Their grand plan was simple: line up along the main parade route and attack as the Imperial car drove past. It sounded foolproof on paper, but absolute chaos was waiting just around the corner for them. The fateful morning arrived, and the royal motorcade rolled down the crowded city street. The first assassin was stationed along the route, ready for action. But as the target car approached, he panicked, froze completely, and let it drive right past. Minutes later, the car approached the second assassin. This man had a crystal-clear line of sight, but he got nervous about a nearby police officer and also did absolutely nothing. 2 attempts down, 0 results for the team. If this were an action movie, the entire operation would be canceled. But the third assassin along the riverbank was a 19-year-old named Nedeljko Kabrinovich, and he was determined to actually do something dramatic. Kabrinovich pulled the pin on his hand grenade and threw it straight at the Archduke's open convertible. It was a dramatic moment, except for one critical detail. He forgot that the grenade had a 10-second delay timer. Instead of exploding on impact, the heavy metal bomb bounced off the back of the convertible top and rolled into the street behind them. It exploded right underneath the following vehicle, injuring 2 officers and several innocent bystanders. The Archduke's driver slammed on the gas pedal, accelerating away from the smoke. Franz Ferdinand was completely unharmed, but the rest of the conspirators melted into the crowd, convinced that their big mission was an absolute failure. What happened next to Kabrinovich is the stuff of pure historical comedy. Following his instructions, he swallowed his cyanide pill and leaped off the bridge into the river to avoid capture. However, the cyanide pill was extremely old and expired, which only caused him to violently throw up. Furthermore, because it was a hot summer day, the river was only about 4 inches deep, so instead of a dramatic deep water escape, he was lying face down in ankle-deep mud, heavily nauseated, surrounded by an angry mob. The police simply walked over, picked him up by his collar, and dragged him away. At this point, Gavrilo Princip gave up and went to buy a lunch sandwich. Meanwhile, the Archduke arrived at City Hall, understandably furious about the morning events. During the official welcoming ceremony, he interrupted the local mayor mid-speech, shouting about welcoming visitors with bombs. After calming down, Franz Ferdinand made a surprising decision. Instead of immediately fleeing the city for safety, he insisted on visiting the local hospital to check on the officers injured by the grenade explosion. His team agreed, but decided to take a completely different route along the main boulevard to avoid the narrow city streets. It was a sensible safety precaution that should have saved his life, except for one tiny, unbelievable detail that changed the modern world forever. Nobody remembered to inform the lead driver about the last-minute route change. As the motorcade departed City Hall, the driver followed the original schedule, turning right onto Franz Josef Street. Imperial Governor Potiorek, sitting inside the car, realized the mistake immediately. He shouted at the driver to stop and back up. The driver slammed on the brakes, right in front of Schiller Delicatessen, right where Princip was standing, with his sandwich. If you are enjoying this chaotic sequence of real history, hit the like button and subscribe right now so you never miss another wild story. The car did not have a reverse gear function, meaning the engine stalled out completely. So picture this exact moment. A high-value Imperial target sits completely stationary in an open-top car, disabled on a narrow street, directly in front of the man who had just given up on his mission. Princip could not believe his eyes. He put down his lunch, pulled out his pistol, and stepped forward into the street. From just a few feet away, he fired 2 shots into the vehicle. One bullet hit the Archduke, and the second hit his wife, Sophie. The entire sequence of events, from 7 botched attempts to a stalled car outside a lunch spot, had somehow aligned perfectly for the absolute worst outcome possible. Princip was immediately tackled by bystanders, but the tragic damage was already done. Both Franz Ferdinand and Sophie passed away within minutes of the shooting. Within a single month, Austria-Hungary declared war on Serbia. Due to a complex web of secret military alliances, Russia mobilized its army. Germany declared war on Russia, France joined in, and Great Britain stepped into the massive fight. What began as a string of clumsy blunders by nervous teenagers in Sarajevo ignited World War I. Over 20 million people would lose their lives, empires collapsed across Europe, and the geopolitical landscape of the entire planet was reshaped forever in ways we still feel today. For decades, popular folklore loved to frame this whole story around that famous sandwich outside the bakery. Modern historians often debate whether Princip was actually eating a sandwich or simply standing near the shop after a failed attempt, but the underlying truth remains entirely undisputed. A grand global disaster was triggered not by strategic masterminds, but by wrong turns, expired poison, shallow rivers, and sheer bad communication. Had the driver kept going straight, or had the poison worked, the entire 20th century might have looked completely different. It shows us how delicate history truly is when human error takes the steering wheel of destiny. This wild story offers a surprisingly sharp lesson about human nature today. We often assume that massive global events are controlled by brilliant strategists with flawless master plans. But in reality, the biggest shifts in human history are often driven by simple miscommunications, panic, and sheer unpredictable luck. A missed memo, or a simple wrong turn, can ripple outward and change everything for millions of people. You never truly know how a small daily choice might ripple through time. So the next time you drop your lunch or miss a turn on your commute, remember that small mistakes happen to everyone, hopefully without starting a global conflict. And that is how a series of absolute blunders, a wrong turn, and a famous lunch break changed the entire world forever. History is usually far stranger than fiction, and we are just getting started uncovering these absurd historical moments. Which wild true story should we cover in our next animated video? Let us know down in the comments section below. If you had a good laugh and learned something new today, hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, and share this video with a friend who loves history. Thanks for watching, and we will see you next time for more unbelievable history.